So, David, you have something you want to promote. So I think we should start with clips from the Real Ass podcast, where Joe Matarese gets mentioned. You know, we're interested in Joe Matarese here. By the way, did you hear about my run-in with Joe Matarese?
No.
I won't go into it in too much detail because I explained it all on Who Are These Socials last night.
Right, I have some notes here. You've been fighting with Joe Matarese.
Yes. Oh, I made your notes. Good. I'm glad. Yeah, we have kind of a beef with Joe Matarese now. It's part of the banter section, so it's the most popular part of WATS. Karl showed me some of the numbers, and he said the views plummet post banter. People show up for the banter, and then they get the hell out of there. So luckily, we squeezed it in while people were still watching. But yeah, in the banter portion of the show, we talk about Joe Matarese's live stream, where it was basically me and him going back and forth, and like two other people in the chat. It was crazy, and then he just deleted it, so there's no evidence of it or anything.
Where is he going live?
Instagram.
I've caught him live on YouTube many times, and you can find me in that chat, but I've never caught him on Instagram. That's great. I'll have to keep an eye out.
Oh yeah, you were going back and forth with Joe for a little while, David.
I think we're becoming good friends, although it is safe to say he's kind of misled me. He's assured me he will be continuing his podcast weekly at times, and then an episode doesn't come out for 4 or 5 weeks. So it is a little confusing, you know, but we've even texted each other back and forth, and he's very sweet.
Yeah. Well, the big news is that he's quitting podcasting and pursuing acting now. That was basically the gist of what he was talking about on this live stream.
He just wants to be Sebastian Maniscalco and Richmond.
I guess. But I invited him on, and he said his issue with the show was that I'm too negative. I don't talk about enough of the good things that he does.
Does he not hear we talked about how good of a person he seemed. We played a stand-up clip where we said this was actually pretty funny.
Yeah, and I was being nice, by the way. So, if you want to call me anything, Joe, it's a liar because I said you were an okay guy.
To be fair, that was before we really took the deep dive into his podcast.
Yeah,
you piece of shit.
Yeah, so I go into further detail in it on Who Are These Socials. So go check that out right now, or after you listen to this show. But another person talking about Joe Matarese is my friend Louis J. Gomez on a recent episode of the Real Ass podcast that someone sent to me for reasons we'll get into in a moment. But let's take a look at that.
Joe Matarese thinks that I hate him. Have I ever said I hated Joe Matarese, Shannon? I don't hate Joe Matarese.
You've been harsh on Skanks. You guys have been harsh on Skanks a little bit.
I've said I hate Joe Matarese.
Not explicitly, but you guys have been a little harsh towards him on Skanks.
I defend my boy Lewis here and say that, can you imagine what a sad life you lead if your whole existence is like, this guy hates me, just trying to explain why people hate you so much? It's like, these people don't hate you, Joe. No one hates you. No one thinks about you. Lewis doesn't think about you. Even someone as small as me, I don't think about you, Joe. I don't hate you. Now I think you're a loser. Before, I just thought you sucked at podcasting. But now I think you're kind of a bad guy.
Well, you'd think that would be more his perspective. You know, he's an established person. You know, no offense to you or Louis J. Gomez, but you might say tier-wise, these are lower people than him. He shouldn't pay too much mind.
Sure, absolutely. I would say Lewis, not anymore.
Definitely.
Yeah, at a time, he should have thought that way. Definitely, yeah. Joe's been around for fucking ever in comedy, but he doesn't think of it that way, David. I think because he knows a lot of the criticism is true at the end of the day. Like, that's the worst part, is that part of this live stream that I was watching was him saying, like, I just don't think I'm good at podcasts. And yet he started 40 different podcasts. So it's like, for a while, he did think he was good, but I think deep down he knew he wasn't, you know?
Well, he is great at interacting with his audience, I'll say that much.
That's true.
I didn't have that experience with him so much.
Oh, I got a comment.
Well, here's what's interesting, though, Craig. I mentioned this to Karl, too, but you remember how someone brought up my name to him?
Mm-hmm.
I can't remember who. Ray DeVito, maybe?
Yep.
I can't remember.
Yeah, it was Ray DeVito. He was being like an absolute cunt to him.
Yeah, so someone brought up my name, and Matarese goes, I got no idea who that is. perfectly reasonable if he doesn't know me.
Mm-hmm.
Yet when I was in his chat, I go, "Hey Joe," I forget the first thing I asked him, but it was something about quitting his podcast, and he goes, "My name on Instagram is Blind Mike Geary." He goes, "Oh, you're the guy who does a whole show. Your whole show's about me." No.
How did he know?
Wrong, Joe.
Is it possible that he thought you were Luis J. Gomez's Blind Mike?
That would be odd if he thought Blind Mike from Gas Digital was doing a whole show about Joe Matarese. But yeah, based on his reaction to Lewis, that might make more sense.
This clip's just labeled honesty.
I mean, well, this is why I like Lewis. Like he says, yeah, I don't get why Joe Matarese hates me, but he can't help but be bluntly honest with him.
I actually never said he sucks at stand-up. I said he's a good stand-up. He's a very professional stand-up. He's been doing it a long time. What I said was on this show, Chris Scopo was on this show. And then he told me that
Speaking of black butts.
he told me he's the co-host of Joe Matarese's podcast.
Okay.
So then I said to him, I was like, don't do that. That's like a terrible career move. Which it is. And I also said Joe Matarese would tell you that. Joe Matarese would tell you, like, hey, dude, if you're attaching your horse to this cart, it's not necessarily a good career move. I'm not even saying don't do it. I'm just saying, like, you know.
Right. I wish I had somebody that was that honest with me years ago.
Yeah. But it's not a good career move. It's really not. Like, you know, like it's.
But is he? I don't know him well enough. Is he the type that would say, like, "Hey, get out while you can, buddy. I get it if you don't want to do this with me." I don't know if he has that.
I don't know if he has the self-awareness.
Yeah, see, that I think Lewis realized it there, where I would have thought the same thing too. I would have thought, oh, Joe Matarese can kind of joke around at this point. He's been through the Red Bar ringer and had porcelain documentaries made about him. I think he understands at this point the criticism of him. But no, he doesn't have that self-awareness. I used to think that, and it seems like he doesn't. And that's why I respect Lewis, is like, he'll shit on people the way he just kind of made fun of Joe Matarese, but he's also honest about his own career and has a certain amount of self-awareness and is like leaps and bounds ahead of Joe Matarese in his career. That's what's crazy, is I think Joe looks at someone like Lewis and thinks that he's owed something or that Lewis should look up to him in some way, when that's just not the case anymore, Joe. You don't do anything. You're kind of a loser at this point.
I think Joe should get angry. He sounds more like Joe Satarese.
Oh God, I laughed at that.
I like that, David. Well, it's funny you say that, David. In the Instagram live chat I was in with him, he goes, "You know, I'd like to get off my meds and really let you guys have it." And I was like, "Yeah, anytime. Come on the podcast." And then he pretended he didn't see that.
So he was then Joe Matarese
Yes.
with a D.
Yeah. Leave it to David. Huh?
Here comes some shout outs.
Okay, good.
To skim through this, but it says on the Blind Mike project, the title
Shut
says
up, Blind Mike.
it says not
you,
on our Blind Mike.
Straight Blind Mike.
Joe Matarese.
Hey, finally, a little respect.
That's just not right.
Finally, people are realizing how straight I am.
One in the chat if you think he's gay.
Guys, this is ridiculous. My name has been sullied by this by this queer. he's tarnished my good name. No, I like gay Blind Mike as well. But yes, that is very common that people confuse me with gay Blind Mike now. So I'm glad Lewis made that disclaimer.
Yeah, it will never happen again now.
No, he's scrubbed it clean.
Gomez and WATP. I don't know what that is.
Who are these podcasts?
Oh.
You remember who are these podcasts? And I remember we kidnapped the host's
yes.
girlfriend.
Yes,
and
I
I
do.
pulled a
Okay,
gun.
hold on one second. Did you know this, Craig?
No.
Okay, so this is very funny. Lewis is about to explain the one interaction they had with Karl.
That's real?
Well, we'll get into how real it is. But the first time I ever heard of Who Are These Podcasts was when they reviewed Cumtown. So I think it was not that long after. I think it was maybe around the same time. I don't remember exactly. But Lewis said, like, oh, he should review Real Ass Podcast. I think that would be funny. And then Karl never did it. So Lewis had to resort to some attention-seeking tactics to try and get Real Ass Podcast featured on WATP. So he's going to explain that. And by the way, Lewis, if I can correct you, it's his wife that you kidnapped and raped. So let him explain. But just for context, this is the man's wife.
No. We all gang raped her in the bathroom.
Yes, didn't we have to cut that out or something?
No, we had to remove the episode when Shane was dealing with SNL. Because Shane was on the episode, we had to remove the episode altogether. But I think it's since then has been put back up. Make sure that episode's back up. That was a great classic. Us gang raping Karl from Who Are These Podcasts girlfriend because he wouldn't talk shit about us.
It's his wife.
He talked shit about everybody. And I was like, "Who the fuck do you think you are? You're not going to trash my podcast, Karl."
Is his wife at the time?
I think so. Yeah, I don't know how long they've been married, but I assume so. But
That is an edgy bit.
It's yeah. In hindsight, the explanation of it doesn't sound great, but it is very funny to me. Like, good for Karl. Karl was talked about in an episode that Shane Gillis needed scrubbed from the internet so he didn't get further canceled. That's a feather in his cap, right? That's a badge of honor.
Next, I have when I first started listening to this, a pit in my stomach began. At the
Oh,
beginning.
why? Oh, yes, me too. Actually, this is. I mean, it's why I know, like, if something like Red Bar ever got a hold of our show, I would just agree with them. I'd be a guest and be like, "No, you're right." Like,
Yeah.
like when I hear my voice out of context, there's nothing that makes me cringe more.
Correct.
But Zach has a couple pretty good lines here.
Yes, he does.
You think there's a reason?
we
Shut up! Shut up!
Watch Joe Matarese.
Why do you sound like that?
I don't know what they're playing it through, but you don't ever sound like that far away from the microphone.
Oh God, does it make me cringe to hear myself?
How nice of them. They paused the video and say, go watch it on their channel.
That's the thing, and I'm in the gayest position possible.
Is that Hack Ride's vape of the day?
I don't even do that anymore.
All right. You think there's a reason?
Are we watching
Boston?
Blind Mike watch Joe Matarese?
Yeah.
And people are watching us do this.
It's become a fucking Russian doll. Of
Where
just
are?
content.
What is happening?
Oh, this is like hack inception.
What is?
Somewhere there's a top spinning and no one laughing.
I actually thank God for Zach Amico, even though he's having a little fun with us there. But I was just like, if they watch any more of this, I'm going to kill myself. Shut it up.
I'm glad you felt the same way because I'm watching and then I just see us on the top left of the screen and I panicked.
Me out of this show out of context makes no sense. Like, there's
know.
nothing worse. And I'm sure it sounds like I'm in a passionate rant right there where I'm angry like an asshole about Joe Matarese for some reason. I'll tell you, this one hurt more than anything. When they pull up the screen, I think maybe they couldn't tell exactly. We probably had a split screen where we're on it and Joe and Ray DeVito or something.
Yep.
And Lewis goes, "Oh, they had Ray DeVito on?"
Yes.
And I wanted to be like, no, we didn't.
Well, it sounds by that clip that he realized that wasn't the case.
I hope so.
It feels like everybody has Ray DeVito on, yet I can't get a hold of him.
Yeah, what the hell? I've even gone to the top. I've gone to Karl to try to get Ray DeVito on David Collins' show, and just nothing. You've still heard nothing, David.
I emailed Karl yesterday. I said, Blind Mike had suggested that you would be a good person to reach out to and maybe see what the case is. Yeah, if he's just declining to get back to me, that's one thing. But if it's been overlooked, then I would like to know the difference.
Yes, right. Yeah, who the fuck does Ray DeVito think? Guy, reach out to Ray DeVito and tell him he should
And Ray
be on.
DeVito and I were on the same episode of Who Are the Podcasts when I was on that show back in January. So we've already built some sort of rapport there. I thought we had a working relationship at this point, but I'm not sure. I'd like to think that he's just overlooked it. But then you hear all these other people saying such rude things about him, and I have to wonder, is he being rude to me?
That's interesting. Yeah, he's a little. What's good for the goose is good for the gander, I suppose.
No one's been more rude to Ray DeVito than Joe Matarese. And
That's
Hack
true.
Ride made a cartoon about hack robots that suck at comedy being Ray DeVito, and it was still
That's-
Joe Matarese.
Yeah, I understand. Yeah. So shout out to the Real Ass Podcast and the Real Ass Dude himself for always shouting out this program and being very kind to us. I appreciate the rattlesnake.
Well, I'd love to work with that show in the future. I've entered into a contest that show had proposed a couple weeks ago. Jerry sent me that clip, and I said, "Oh, that would be right up my alley." Doing some on the street interviews for that show too, and I said, "Oh, we could work it. I could two birds with one stone, so to speak." But that team is yet to get back to me, so I'm kind of looking forward to if that contest will ever take place.
Yeah, so tell me what this would be, David. You've mentioned it to me, but I wasn't aware of the contest. So you would be a correspondent for them in what way?
Right. They've requested submissions for a national correspondent competition where they'd go over news stories of sorts on their show. So maybe I think they're asking because, to quote, it was something like, we'll send that correspondent to ask podcast questions on the street. So it seemed like maybe they're talking about a news story and you bring that news story to the public.
Okay. Well, maybe I'll reach out to Luis J. Gomez for you, too, now. Try to get the ball rolling. Have they mentioned it since the first time? Have they just forgotten about this contest?
I
maybe?
think it's just been a couple weeks now, so it's tough to say. But I'm sending emails, I'm following up on the social media, and they also are not getting back to me. So it's tough to know exactly what happened. It's funny that you say that about reaching out to Luis J. Gomez. I guess he does know your name according to that clip. But moms are moms, and my mother had said to me, she said, "Oh, if you entered in that contest, the next thing that you do is reach out to Mike Geary and tell him to reach." I said, "These two people are completely unrelated. That's a very what a mom thing to suggest." But it is funny that you would say that. She's the same person that heard I was doing more stand-up comedy and said, "Email Jerry Seinfeld, see what he could do for you." So this is a very motherly thing to do, and I thought it was another one of those situations. So it's funny that you bring that up.
I have a story very similar to that, David. After I was on Lauren Compton's podcast, have I said this on the air already?
I don't think so.
After I was on Lauren Compton's podcast, my mom called me and didn't say, it was kind of like, "Hey, great job on the show," but immediately went right into "So when are you going to get on Shane Gillis's podcast?"
Right.
And I go, I don't know, no time soon." And she goes, "But you're good friends with him, no?" And I go, "No, I'm certainly not good friends with him."
Right. My mother would have thought that me losing my job at the radio station was grounds to get on Rogan.
Yes. So for this this Real Ass Podcast contest, David, I think you'd be perfect for it. But you said you had a video. Did you want to play that? Your submission? Maybe we could get the ball rolling here. If the gearheads watch this, maybe we can have people reach out to Lewis and say,
That was
going
to be the next step, and I had talked about this with my team. We said, if this just doesn't go anywhere, we've already put the work into creating a submission video, and I think I would do a good job at that spot, and it might be a good opportunity to get some exposure from that show, and I think I might do a good job for them. So we'd like to, maybe push things along via social media if it's not happening more naturally.
Okay. Do you want to play the video, or do you want to hold off on that until you?
Well, I've sent you the video. Yeah, it would be exciting to have it played. It's a little embarrassing, really, but I am looking forward. I'm saying, Jerry, did it get played today? I'd love to see other people reacting to it.